I've been wanting to make a video about the Four Shades for a long time now, but 7.0's Archon Quest definitely made me want to make this. Speaking of 7.0, this video will contain some spoilers for Act 2 of the Archon Quest, so just be aware of that. In any case, in this video I'll be discussing the Four Shades in order of how loyal they are to the Heavenly Principles. I've always been really interested in the fact that the Four Shades all have different attitudes and treat their duties differently from each other. It's clear that they all have their own thoughts about the Heavenly Principles, Teyvat, and the inhabitants of Teyvat. Of course, I can't go without mentioning Paimon now that we know her origins. I hope you enjoy! Ronova. Firstly, there's Ronova. I would undoubtedly argue that Ronova is the most loyal to the Heavenly Principles and her duties as the ruler of death. She absolutely refuses to sway from her duty and causes people to die when it's their time, simply because it's necessary. Ronova also seems to hate or dislike humans and angels, especially those who try to break the rules. She even considers murderers as people who are trying to lay claim on her authority, which shows that she takes her role seriously and wants to have all the authority over death. She takes her position as a god seriously, and she believes that those below her should respect her, and shouldn't call her by her name, disrespectful titles, or gaze up at the heavens at her. We can see her annoyance about disrespect in both the Archon Quest and the God's Limits, when Mitya calls her the Grim Reaper, or when Pierro gazes up at the sky. Speaking of Pierro, Ronova of course also dealt with bigger issues and punishments, such as the curse of immortality that she put on Khaenri'ahns after the Cataclysm. On top of that, Ronova also had a pact with Mavuika. Ronova granted Mavuika powers to defeat an abyssal entity, but it would be at the cost of Mavuika's eventual death. Ronova saw this pact through to the end and actually wanted to take Mavuika's life before Capitano offered himself instead. Ronova sounded offended at this too, accusing Capitano of using her own domain against her. Ronova's disdain for humanity is further emphasized in the 7.0 Archon Quest, where she purposely traps everyone in the Korolevsky Theater for her own entertainment. Even though she was yet again carrying out her duty, namely returning lost souls to the ley lines, the way she did it all seemed to be for her own entertainment. She even says, "I thoroughly enjoyed watching this drama, dealing with death from a mortal perspective, play out on the stage." So while she views death as something necessary and killing as something she must do, she treats the deaths of these humans as theatrical, as if it were something for her own entertainment. She also tells us that the angels modified the ley lines around Korolevsky Theater to accommodate the souls of some other creatures, but that it in turn hindered the ability to accept ordinary souls. The act of fixing this is treated as a tedious task by Ronova, which makes it seem like she's also not too fond of angels either. But Renova's presence in Snezhnaya also has another important reason: the Tsaritsa's plan. After Mitya tested his hypothesis, he discovered that Ronova causes mass death, or the curse of death, to happen every time Snezhnaya makes advancements in their experiments. These experiments have to do with Project Mistletoe, which is a massive weapon meant to attack the Heavenly Principles. The fact that it's Ronova who's intervening here, blatantly trying to obstruct the Tsaritsa's plan while still staying within her bounds as the ruler of death, definitely goes to show how loyal she is to the Heavenly Principles. Naberius. I debated whether Naberius or Istaroth should be in second place, but I decided to put Naberius here. That's because Naberius, as far as we know, has never directly intervened with humanity or other creatures, even though she was the one to create them. Even with Egeria, the heart of the primordial sea, it doesn't seem like Naberius intervened with her beyond her creation. Of course, we do know that Egeria got punished for turning Oceanids human, but it's not really clear if that punishment was directly carried out by Naberius or just the Heavenly Principles in general. Despite not intervening, Naberius can't be said to be completely innocent. That's mostly because her heart was inside of a domain that was accessible to humans, or maybe specifically to Khaenri'ahns. This subsequently allowed Rheindater and Albedo to stumble upon it when exploring domains. We don't know much about this domain, but to me it feels deliberate. Why would Naberius' heart be separate in the first place? And if it's so important, shouldn't it be hidden better? Regardless, the placement of the heart inside of this domain gave Rheindater the chance to devour it, and now Naberius and Rheindater have merged. Although Naberius can still speak, she has lost all agency and Rheindater has most of the control. However, that doesn't mean that Naberius has lost all loyalty to the Heavenly Principles. She still tells Rheindaelter off for using her powers for her own entertainment and tells her not to speak disrespectfully about the heavenly principles. So if we're purely speaking about Naberius herself, I would say her loyalty has wavered somewhat, but she still stands on the side of the heavenly principles. But if we consider Rheindaelter, things change. Even if we don't know what Rheindaelter's involvement is just yet, we can see her playing chess with the Tsaritsa in one of the trailers, which undoubtedly means she's involved somehow. Plus, the particles floating around the Misteltein are suspiciously similar to the patterns associated with Naberius. Istaroth. Out of all the shades, Istaroth is definitely the one who has meddled with humanity's affairs the most. Although she still lives in Celestia, she seems quite rebellious in some things that she does with her authority over time. I think the most important thing is how she dealt with Zibai's death. As you might know, Zibai is an angel and a moon envoy who was worshipped by the people of Langan before the time of the Funerary War. She was seen as someone who blessed them with a plentiful harvest. When the War of Funerary Flame happened, 2 of the moons were destroyed, causing remnants to rain down upon Teyvat, including Langan. In order to cleanse this, a celestial nail was sent down, like in many other places in Teyvat. Zibai considered it her duty to protect the people who had worshipped her, and thus attempted to stop the celestial nail, but it cost her life. Even though Istaroth warned her of this prior, Istaroth still decided to save Zibai by splitting her soul into 3 fragments. To me, this seems like a pretty big act of rebellion against the heavenly principles, as the celestial nail was sent down by them. Intervening with something like that can undoubtedly be classified as stepping out of line, even if she did not experience any consequences for this act. But that's not the only thing Istaroth has done, as she also has connections with several other civilizations, being worshipped by some and asked for help by others. Just to name a few, she was worshipped in Hyperborea and Arcadia, which is where Mondstadt is now. She helped the people of Enkanomiya build the Dainichi Mikoshi, and she helped Makoto with the sacred Sakura. And lastly, and maybe most importantly, she has connections to Barbatos. I think it's a pretty well-known fact by now that the 2 characters share a voice actor, which already hints at their connection. When Barbatos was still a wind spirit, he encountered Istaroth. Upon hearing that he wished to help the people of Old Mondstadt, she granted him her powers. This is likely how Venti is able to play any songs from past or present. Regardless, Istaroth's act of intervening had an impact on how the rebellion played out and likely made it possible for Barbatos to ascend to the position of Animal Archon. From exploring the moon, we also learned that the Moon Sisters, specifically Canon, met Istaroth at some point. They discussed the laws of time in Teyvat, since this used to be the domain of the moons. Istaroth also seemed to be important to the unity between the moons and the heavenly principles, since she gave Zibai a moon wheel and made her into a moon envoy. But Arya also mentioned that she had a gut feeling that Istaroth has her own thoughts about the heavenly principles, basically implying that she may not agree with them fully. So it's clear that Istaroth has meddled a lot with humanity and is not fully loyal, or at least critical of the heavenly principles. Regardless of that, she remains in Celestia and attends the gatherings that the 4 shades have, even if she appears bored and disinterested most of the time. Asmodee. The last of the 4 shades, and also the most disloyal one, is Asmodee. Even though she is the first shade we met, also the person who separated the Traveler and their sibling, something seems to have changed in those 500 years, as she's completely missing. Even in a book that you can find in Not Cry with prayers in it, there are prayers for Phanes and the other shades, but the page where hers should be is empty. I mentioned this in my video about the Temple of Space, but Asmodee seems to be loyal to a new master, which is implied by Melantha to be the Abyss sibling. Even though we have no solid confirmation on why Asmodee would switch loyalty, much less to our sibling, it definitely shows that Asmodee is not very loyal to the heavenly principles at all. She's been missing from Celestia for a long time, and even the other shades don't know about her whereabouts. In my opinion, that shows that she's the least loyal shade and clearly has her own ideas about the heavenly principles and their deeds. These ideas also show in her Temple of Space, particularly because of what she preserves here. If you explore the Temple of Space, you'll notice that all the NPCs are citizens from ancient civilizations that Asmodee uplifted into her temple. But what most of these NPCs have in common is that they're from civilizations that ended because of the Celestial Nails, or at the very least due to the authority of the heavenly principles. There are NPCs from civilizations as old as Hyperborea, Langan, Arcadia, and Enkanomiya, but also those from King Dashrath's era, Remuria, Konoha or pre-Archon Natlan and Inazuma. Preserving civilizations that got lost because of your master seems a bit strange, and definitely feels like criticism of the countless deaths that the Heavenly Principles have caused. In that sense, she and Istaroth might be slightly similar, as they're not completely ignorant to the suffering of humanity. Even the other three shades put artifacts and buildings into the Temple of Space that also belong to these ancient civilizations. The fact that they also contributed to the temple might indicate that they too might not be happy with how things went down. But Asmodee is the one who created this temple, and she is the one who actually left Celestia, which shows that she is the least loyal and most critical shade, Paimon. Lastly, I want to discuss Paimon. I know she's technically not a shade, but we did just learn that she is a creation of Celestia, so I think it's important to mention her as well. Since Paimon was unaware of her celestial origin and has no power or authority, I would say that Paimon is more so ignorant than disloyal. Before she even knew about her origins, she already chose to side with Traveler, where I assume she will stay, which I guess that makes her loyal to a different master, just like Asmodee. Still, I would argue that their situations are pretty different, since Asmodee consciously chose to leave, while Paimon got forced to. Something that I feel is important to mention is the 5 artifact categories. Since we saw Reindotter, Renova, and Istaroth in The Truth Amongst the Pages of Purana, we can say with full certainty that Naberius is the Flower of Life, Renova is the Plume of Death, and Istaroth is the Sands of Time. Logically, that means Asmodee is the Goblet of Yonatham. That only leaves the Circlet of Logos. I've seen many theories arguing that the circlet is Phanes, but what if it's actually Paimon? Since we now know that the shades can take the form of their pieces, it makes sense that Paimon would be the crown, considering she has a halo-like crown above her head. Still, even if that's true, it does not explain why Paimon has no powers and why there's no mention whatsoever of some kind of god of reason, which the circlet would imply there is.
Life abides no reason.
While we don't know the opinions of the other shades about Paimon, we do know that Renova does not seem to care for her, viewing her as a useless object. It's thus hard to say if Paimon even belongs with the shades or what the purpose of her creation was. Plus, the fact that Traveler just happened to meet her, despite not having an anchored fate in Teyvat, is very strange as well. So Paimon's ties to the Heavenly Principles are unknown, but she was completely ignorant to them at first, and also doesn't seem to have any powers or authority over any one thing. I really am curious to learn more about her. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about the loyalty of the 4 shades and where you think Paimon fits into all of this. If you enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. Bye bye!